Good morning. It is Tuesday morning, and you know what that means? That's correct. It's another episode of the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings, and always joining me, Miss Ronleen Kennedy, for another exciting hour of information and topics of interest that we hope will enlighten you and empower you in some kind of way. Good morning, Ronleen.
Good morning, Earl. How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. So,
Glad to.
Ronnie, let me ask you a question. What would be the most valuable commodity you could ever wish you could own at this day and time? What would be the most valuable commodity?
Land, waterfront property.
Oh, you're going to go from land to waterfront property. Okay.
Correct.
And why would you say waterfront property?
It's more profitable.
Is more profitable?
Yes.
I
Depends on
see.
where that waterfront is located.
I see.
Mhm.
So if you had land that was waterfront property that had been in your family for over 150 years, would you still be looking at the value of it in terms of what you could possibly get for it? Or would you rather pass it along to your descendants?
Pass it along to my descendants with the understanding of education for that property.
I see. Well, that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about today because I found it quite interesting. And definitely for our listeners and viewers in the state of North Carolina, that there have been some things that have been going on in North Carolina since the Civil War.
The Civil War, Earl?
Since the Civil War.
Oh, boy.
And you got to keep in mind that Black people came to this country in 1619,
Uh-huh.
right? 1619. So 200 years later, we are pretty adept at how things are going to be in this country as it relates to what we can and can't do. Okay, 200 years now. That's a long time to take you from not knowing how to speak the language or understanding the ways and the rituals and the cultures of the people who have you enslaved and want to use you for labor and not care about anything else. You do the work, and that's all we care about. We'll put a semi roof over your head, and we'll feed you the scraps from the table. But so the Civil War comes along, and basically, it's being fought for a couple of things. However, from a Black person's point of view, I guess the primary thing that is hoping that they're hoping comes out of the Civil War is the word and the act called freedom.
Mm.
So when the Civil War is over, that period from the time the Civil War is over, which is about 1865, right? About 1865 until 1877,
Mm.
which is when Reconstruction, Reconstruction. We hear that term tossed about, but I don't think we actually put some real thought and value to it because the era of Reconstruction after the Civil War has to do with what? Rebuilding the country.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know it, if you aren't paying attention, if you haven't looked in your history books or looked online to look at some things or seen some videos, war, as the great Edwin Starr put in his song that Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan made so famous again, in the movie Rush Hour. War. What is it good for?
And say it's absolutely
Absolutely nothing.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It is a temporary fix to a problem.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, when the war is over, when the surrendering has happened, when the documents to cease any additional encounters is over, what do you have left?
Nothing
I'm
but
asking you, what
fallout.
do you have left?
Yeah, nothing but the fallout.
And what does the fallout look like?
Disa-
Let's take it from that perspective. What does the fallout look like?
disastrous.
Disastrous. Okay. Could you take it a little bit further than just saying disastrous?
Well, depends on who has gotten hurt, which normally everybody gets hurt, is the economy. It's everything. So if your area was affected, your land was affected, if your homes were affected, if the whole city were affected, everything has to be rebuilt.
Okay.
And it takes money to get
Okay.
everything done.
Okay. So at the conclusion of a war, you
And
have
loss of life.
you have the loss of life,
Hmm.
you have a disastrous situation, and you have the destruction of property and human life. That is the fallout, destruction. Because when you tear things up, it takes longer to build it than to tear it up.
Hmm.
Once you tear it up, if you want to do something on that piece of land, listen to what I'm saying now. If you want to do something on that piece of land that has been devastated by war and the physical buildings on that land have been destroyed, the first thing you must do is clean up that destruction. You got to clean up all that mess that's been left by that war. So you got to
Hmm.
clean all that rubble, all that uh, brick and mortar, and everything else. You got to clean that away. That's the first thing. And back in the 1860s, during 1868 to 1877, you didn't have the kind of equipment you have nowadays to move, that kind of stuff around. You had hand labor. You
Hmm.
had some carts and wagons drawn by horses
Right.
to move stuff away. So that takes time. And as you've already indicated, it takes money. So when Reconstruction started, and it was basically said to be a 12-year process, let's just say that in the 4 years of the Civil War, it took 12 years to rebuild what had been destroyed. I'm going to say partially rebuilt because I don't think it was all rebuilt in that 12 years. I think the process continued. But I'm bringing this up to say this, that in a time when Black people were sharecroppers and working the farms and the crops of white landowners, they became educated enough to recognize that the land had the most value than anything ever designed. Not the big mansions, not the furniture and all the things in the big mansions. That was not the real valuable stuff. The valuable stuff was the land that it sat on.
Hmm.
So today, our topic is land recovery and reclaiming. Because here we are in 2023, and Black people in the South, we're going to just focus on the South and specifically North Carolina, because when I looked this up about land recovery, North Carolina seemed to be the state where a lot of information is stemming from. So you have Black people whose great great grandparents owned land, and for whatever reason, the laws of the land. Hear what I'm saying now. You gotta hear what I'm saying. They own land, but the laws of the land, as they did with the Native Americans, began to displace and to take lands from black people, black families who had the property had been in their family for 100 years. So this is what I'm focusing in on today, because a lot of this is going on in the country right now. A lot of this is going on. And when that land meets the law, it's very difficult to prevail if you don't have the documents. And if you were just given a handshake deal about buying some land back in the 1860s and 70s and 80s, and of course, a lot of the land was not that waterfront property you're talking about. It was probably some of the land that nobody really, really wanted. But again, the land is the value. And it may be the land somebody doesn't want, but guess what? In time, that land may become valuable or even very profitable. And I'm reminded of a scene from a former TV sitcom where this guy was out hunting one day, just trying to feed his family, and took a shot at some wild animal that he wanted to, take home so his family could eat, and he missed. But the shot went in the ground. And when the shot went in the ground, it released all this oil. Now, they probably lived on some property that nobody wanted. They lived on some property that probably nobody wanted. They trying to make the best of it. I got some land, though. I got my 2 acres over here. You stay off my 2 acres. You trespassing. Stay off my 2 acres. He took a shot on his land and missed, but yet that shot produced oil. And when that shot produced oil, the vultures came a running. And when the oil companies came a running, they turned them into the Beverly Hillbillies. And for those of you who don't know the Beverly Hillbillies sitcom, this poor family up in the mountains, I don't know if it was Tennessee or West Virginia or North Carolina, I don't know where it was, but when they discovered oil on their property that probably nobody wanted, they became millionaires. So I want to set the stage for where I'm going today, because it's important for us to know where the value is, and as we lose this valuable commodity, how it continues to be a destructive mechanism. Because, we spoke about the land between North Carolina and Tennessee, where a car manufacturer and a battery plant wanted to put a road, a highway, so they can get the batteries to the automobile plant. But the highway had to go through black farmland. And in order to make that work, for that road to be seamless, where it didn't have to go around and, make all kinds of detours, the states were trying to take the land from the black farmers. So with all that said, let me just delve into what I found out and want to talk about today. So the North Carolina Landlord Tenants Acts of 1868 and 1877. Did I mention those two dates already? 1868 and 1877?
Right.
Reconstruction, yes. That's
Reconstruction.
what that was, Reconstruction. The Landlord Tenants Act in North Carolina codified a fundamental power imbalance between landowners and sharecropping farmers. Do I need to read any more than that? Oh my goodness. Codified. That means they put some type of code. Here we go talking about the law and the land.
Mhm.
The laws entitled, see, I didn't say anything about the law in that opening sentence, but the next sentence says the laws entitle property owners to set the worth of a crop at settling time and did not obligate landlords to put contracts in writing or require tenants to have access to ledgers or records.
Mm.
What you say? Oh, no, don't worry about that, Jim. You don't have to write nothing down. You can trust me. This your land. I'm going to give you this land. When you finish doing all the work you need to do to satisfy this debt, I'm going to give you your land. You don't need a piece of paper. You know, all you Native Americans, y'all don't need no paper. We're going to give you your land. We're not going to do nothing crazy. So anyway, beyond that, poor farmers without money to buy the fertilizer, tools, animals, and machinery necessary to farm had to borrow from landowners or merchants on credit, often at exorbitant interest rates. Exorbitant interest rates. Now, last week we talked about scams and schemes. This sounds like a scam and a scheme because I got the land, I can't work the land. I got the land, I don't have any way to make the land become fertile so I can grow crops, so I can grow grass or whatever to feed animals. See, I got to buy the land, then I got to buy the animals, then I got to buy the tools and equipment. And it says machinery, and you know, machinery back then was pretty primitive. The result of this power imbalance combined with the unpredictability of nature was that most sharecropping and tenant farmers were barely able to make ends meet, and many became indebted to the landlords. Man, I got from under this after the Civil War. I got from under slavery after the Civil War. I got a piece of land, but now I got to go borrow money to do some things on the land. So I got to go back to where I just came from in order to survive. So, trying to get ahead, these farmers would plant commodity crops. Now, I'm not sure what a commodity crop is, but commodities, maybe that's corn, soybeans, cotton, things like that. Uh, Intensively, year after year, depleting nutrients from the soil. An 1887 report, which is 10 years after Reconstruction ended, of the state's Bureau of Labor Statistics stated that the crop lean system had proven the crop lean system. I could turn that lean system into the word scam. I could turn lean into the crop scam system. Had proven, quote unquote, a worse curse to North Carolina than droughts, floods, cyclones, storms, rust, caterpillars, and every other evil that attends the farmer. I'm going to read that again. This crop lean system proved to be worse. Oh, it said a worse curse. A worse curse. Now, when we talk about a worse curse, and then there are some politicians who talk about slavery help people, man, you don't know your history, Mr. Historian, Mr. Governor, who's supposed to be a history major from Harvard. You only read a part of your history. But it said a worse curse to North Carolina, not North Carolina farmers, not North Carolina landlords. It said to North Carolina. I mean the whole state.
Mhm.
So if black people live from East Coast to West Coast, North to South in the state of North Carolina, they said this crop lean system was worse than droughts, floods, cyclone storms, rust, caterpillars, and every other evil that would affect the farmer.
That includes frost.
Every other evil. So you can lump anything else you can think of
That
under
includes
every
frost.
other evil,
Mhm.
right? So that tells you in itself just what black families had to deal with. But if there's one thing we know about black people in America, it's the word resilience. Resilience and faith in God has moved mountains, has made a way when there was no way.
Faith of a mustard seed, baby.
Baby, a mustard seed, man, that's the smallest seed there is.
Mhm.
So, in order to try to salvage this, in this article that I found online, it said North Carolina white power brokers started to roll away civil rights for black people by passing what was known as black codes. Why they couldn't call them white codes? Then we know it. Then we know where they're coming from. See, you think black codes would be favorable? It's not. That's not really what it is. The black codes were a series of laws. A series. Y'all not listening to what I'm telling y'all this morning.
Break it
A
on.
a
Series
series
of laws.
of laws, not one law, not two laws. It was a series. So it could be five this way, and then five another way, and then five another way, and then five this way. That's a series because they all connected by one common thread. Black codes were a series of laws enacted in 1866. Before, that 1868, 1877, that denied black people the right to vote, serve on juries, or testify against white people in court.
Mhm.
It's the black code. All right. The codes outlaw interracial marriage and established capital punishment for black people convicted of raping a white woman. They also prohibited black people from owning or carrying firearms or other weapons unless they obtained a license more than a year before the purchase. 2 years later, the white elite, rankled by the progressive reforms of the Republican legislature. Wow, the Republican legislature. They've made a turn now, haven't they? And the new state constitution created in 1868 moved to regain power. Put a pin right there. It's always going to be about two things. I'm going to give Ron Lean an opportunity to share with you what those two things might be before I tell you. It's always about two things. No matter what they're trying to do, series of laws and everything else that black codes and everything else that they're trying to do, it's about two things. Ron Lean, those two things would be
Money and power.
money and power. Give her an A plus. She did her homework. Money and power, or power and
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
They wanted to regain power. They felt that the power was slipping away from them. Come up with some new laws, some new codes, change the way this thing is going. So what did they do? What they always want to do when they want to take, steal, abscond. Ooh, Earl, you said abscond property or money. They used a campaign of terror. A campaign of terror. I want you to match this to today in 2023 to 1868. A campaign of terror carried out by a secret organization. They had a very powerful acronym. They used one letter and they used it 3 times.
Mm.
Hmm?
Starts out with that K, huh?
It starts off with a K and it ends in a
Ends
K,
with the
and in the
K.
middle is a K. And they created this to create fear, to win control of the state legislature in 1870 and the governorship in 1876.
Mm,
We got to get control of things. Folks getting out of control. They getting power. In 2023, folks are still creating ways to use power, money, greed, and fear to get what they want. Now, in 1862, the Homestead Act was granted to Native people's land in the West, 160 acres of stolen lands, and they applied and worked the land for 5 years. Over the course of the next 60 years, 246 million acres of Western land were given to individuals for free.
mm,
What? 246 million acres of Western land was given to individuals for free. About 1.5 million families were given this crucial economic foundation, but only about 5,000 of those were Black.
mm,
Mm, mm, mm. So, see, by the time you allow Black people to have access, you've picked over all the good stuff. You know how that goes. You go to the store and all the good stuff gone.
mhm,
You left with what's left. It did not deter these people, because when you're denied so much, when you can get a thumb hold on something that's better than nothing, you're gonna find a way to make it work. But once again, as they did with the Native Americans, as they did with Black Americans, without the legal documentation, they could loop around and take that land back
through series of laws.
through a series of laws that they created.
Mhm.
Because who's making the laws? Who's sitting in the state legislatures to make the laws?
Right, the paper that you're putting there, and that's why you have to be careful who you put there.
Okay, so this is what has happened, and this is what is going on. But in North Carolina, Black farmers, Black families, they created a foundation for economic and political power. They decided to come together. And when we say come together, that is a word that starts with a U.
Mm,
Unified.
mhm,
We got to get unified. We got to come together and stop all this bickering amongst ourselves, because we're not going to get anywhere bickering amongst ourselves. We want this land and we want to keep this land. The one commodity that we got to hold on to, we got to come together. Got to come together. We got to unify.
mm, mm, mm.
So the farmers, the laborers, work both inside and outside of the system to acquire land. Oh, they did, boy, woo! The one thing that was becoming a serious problem was them folks can read.
Mm,
Oh my goodness, they have become educated.
mhm,
Some of
mhm,
y'all don't know that word,
mhm,
educated.
mhm.
That's where the power started coming. So when these people were able to learn and read, so they used and leveraged their relationships with white landowners or squatted on unused land. Squatted. Isn't that an interesting word? We're going to just I remember back in the day back in college, we used the word squat. And when we says take a squat, that means to have a seat. Just
Mhm.
sit down, just squat. Hey man, take a squat. Squatted on unused land and saved hard-earned, check this term out, Sunday money.
Mhm.
Huh? Sunday money, Ronleen. Have you ever gotten any Sunday money?
Yes.
You have. Well, we're going to take this break to let everybody know that you are listening to the Kitchings Table. And today our topic is land recovery and reclaiming. And we're talking about the most valuable commodity Black people can have in this day and time, which is land. My co-host Ronleen Kennedy is with me today on another exploratory day of information to provide to our viewers and listeners. So, Ronleen, we were we were saying that the Black farmers and laborers in North Carolina and in other parts of the South started earning and saving Sunday money. Now you say you know what Sunday money is. I'm gonna give it to you. What is Sunday money? Let the people know what that Sunday money was.
That Sunday money is the easiest money that you can get. You know that money is coming without a doubt, just because you putting that pan out, if you will. Just look at it as a donation.
Okay. So it says here that Sunday money was extra wage labor done on the weekends.
Hmm.
Hmm? Sound like some entrepreneurship to me.
Yes, the collection plate.
Okay. We gonna get this Sunday money. Everybody gonna get this Sunday money.
The collection.
Okay. If they want you to wash some clothes and iron them and fold them on the weekends for that Sunday money, bring it back and put it in the jar.
Hmm.
If they want you to clean off some fields or pick some crops for that Sunday money, and we ain't talking about no hefty Sunday money now, but they took these Sunday monies for a piece of land to call their own. When they saved enough, they go ask that landowner, how much do you want for those acres of land over there? Well, they got to think about it and rub their chin and scratch their head and think about it. Well, Ronleen, I was really saving that for my grandson, but okay, there's the scheme.
Grandson picked up and went on and went Wyoming.
Man, you ain't even got a grandson. You don't even have a grandson. Here's the scheme, though.
It's a
Well,
scheme.
I can let you have it for $100.
Hmm.
Okay. So in Durham, North Carolina, and across the South, black land ownership grew dramatically, peaking between 1910 and 1920. Now, Reconstruction ended in 1877. So it took 20 some odd years for us to unify and come together
Hmm.
to understand what we got to do in order to get some land. I want you to think about the people out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, what they had to go through to get that land out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to create that Black Wall Street, that community out there in the late 1800s, early 1900s, to get that land that nobody wanted, or they put a higher price on it. So what it says is, although Black farms were generally smaller and on less productive land than the people that sold it to them, land land became many families' primary asset and intrinsically entwined with heritage and home. You got that land, you defended and protected that land no matter what. You earn as much Sunday money as you need to make that payment. You squatted on that land and nobody's going to take it from you. And then it says this. There was a Colored Farmers Alliance in North Carolina, but it is unknown to what extent the organization was active in Durham. However, a more radical farmers organization called the Knights of Labor attracted a large contingent of Black farmers. The Knights of Labor.
Mhm.
What you say? Folks started coming together and getting together and unifying, and we're going to make a way where it was used not to be a way. We're going to make a way. So, in this day and time, in 2023, right? Fast forward 113 years later, 103 years later, African American families, particularly in the South, are pushing for the return of the lands they say was taken in government seizures. Let's insert that other word instead of saying seizures. Government scams
Mm.
and an emerging attempt to provide economic restoration for the long saga of Black land loss and deprived inheritances. Deprived inheritances, which means that the land, if we did have some land and we did decide to sell it, we never got fair market value for the land. Just like they're doing to those farmers in Tennessee and North Carolina, where they're trying to put that highway from North Carolina to Tennessee. An acre of land might be valued at $225,000, and they're trying to tell those folks, we're only going to give you $30,000 per acre. Deprived inheritances. We own it, you trying to take it again. These lands have been passed down. They've been passed down. And the documentation is the key to what's going on. Because here it says this, and this is something that I'm a firm believer in this day and time. As Black people, we have to stop trying to tell our history in a verbal manner.
Drop the mic on that. You're right.
Okay? Storytelling is great.
Mhm.
Is great. However, without documentation, without it being written down, and published, it does not carry the power. It does not carry the power that's needed. Because what this says in this article, and this article was written by Andrea D.S. Birch. She wrote this article. What it says is the descendants are searching for aging deeds and scouring public records to try to prove past ownerships of properties that are now the sites of businesses, college dormitories, and in the case of one family, a parking lot for a campus business administration building.
Mm.
Okay. And what that building, that campus business administration building is, and parking lot says that where it is was once owned by Black families. And when there's no deeds, there's no documentation. See, they create the laws and they circle back around. When the laws become, when the land becomes more valuable, they circle back around. So either you don't have the documentation, the deeds, something in writing, or eminent domain kicks in. Eminent domain means we're going to give you a price. If you don't take the price, if you don't like the price, if you won't sell it, we will just what, Ronleen?
Take your land anyway.
We're going to take it anyway. Deprived inheritances. So these people want the land, or to be paid current market value. And they're saying that the harm done as a way to return their history to public memory. They're claiming that you took the land, you put these buildings on it. We can't get the land back now because your building is on it. But if I find a documentation to say that's my land, we're going to court.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to court. We're going to war. We're going to war. See, it's a new kind of civil war. It's a legal civil war. It's a documentation civil war. We're not going to fight, exchanging hands. We're not going to fight exchanging bullets. Oh no, we're going to fight exchanging words on that new civil war. That civil war that stands up like none other. Because when we go to court, when we take it to the laws of the land and we seek what? Justice.
Mm-hmm.
When we seek justice from the law of the land. So if we win, we want the fair market value.
Yes.
Okay, so don't try to depreciate it now that we won and we can't get the property back. So you're gonna depreciate it. No, you don't have to do that. Just tell us what it's worth and just give us our money.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go find some other property, some other land to purchase to regain, some power.
And thank you for putting the buildings on top of it, because that's what makes it more profitable.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So this is what is happening in 2023. Black families are seeking out ways to recover land. And before I turn it over to you for our Black History Fact of the Day, I can't remember the name of the beach out in California, but Blacks started and opened a beach out in California that was just for them. Became very, very profitable, became very well known, and some kind of way, it has fallen into a place where the people who actually own it are fighting to keep it, because now folks developers want to come in. Ooh, this is like you said at the start of the show, Ron Lean, that waterfront property. Ooh,
Yeah.
this is some good waterfront property on this beach. Y'all don't need it. Y'all don't know what y'all doing with it. We're gonna
I
put some
wish
hotels.
our listeners to drop that in our comments so we can know what beach that was.
Right.
Drop it in the comments if you're listening. Do
Right.
the research for us.
And we're going to build some hotels and condominiums there. We're going to pay you pennies on the dollar for the acreage on this prime real estate, so we can build some condos and hotels. No. They're going to fight. They're going to court and they're going to fight, because that land was land that their families and that collective group of Black Americans purchased back in the early 1900s,
Mm-hmm.
or in the mid 1900s. Got this land and developed it and made something out of it when nobody else wanted. Nobody ever thought about it. That's that property that nobody wants. So they took a shot, and all of a sudden the oil came out of that land on the beach, and now they developed it up and got it just like they weren't asking nobody to come and be a part of that property but themselves. We just got this beach for us. We're not bothering nobody else. We just got this for us. But you're not happy with your beach, you got to have my beach too.
Mm-hmm.
We can relate to that here in North Florida with the American Beach and what they're doing in Amelia Island and Fernandina. American Beach is a very narrow strip of land that Black people have homes on. They tried to develop it up. The storm came and wiped it out for the most part, but they still were able to salvage it. But now they're being squeezed from north and the south to take American Beach. Ronline, I'm gonna turn Black History Fact over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Earl, for bringing that to us. And I'm so happy for our listeners today and our likes that we're receiving. And I tell you, before this is over with, if you could just drop it in the comments. So, what beach that was out there in California that African Americans once had a strip of, that'll be great. Well, today's Black History Acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge the living people. I understand that it's at least 5 or 6 people that are still living from that time. Um, Most of them are over 100 years old now, from my understanding. So, and the 2 women that Tyler Perry himself have talked to, these ladies were featured on the Black Enterprise. Kevin Himmel was the person that brought this to light, and I'm so glad for him that he did that. But their names, um, they were presented with the by Congress with the Congressional Gold Medal for their stellar work in the Women Army Corps, and it's called WACS. And I can't talk about WACS without talking about the Lieutenant um, Pat, what was her fears? Your aunt, who was a part of the Women Army Corps. So anyway, I can't hear you.
The member of the Waves, not the Wax.
Okay, the member
The
of the WAC.
Waves were the Navy.
Okay, well, I couldn't talk about these ladies without talking about your aunt who has passed on. But anyway, these ladies were a member of the 688, well, they call it 6888, the battalion that was for the postal service or the postal work. And what happened with them, they were here in the United States. They became volunteers of the Women Army Corps, and their names is Lena Bell King, and Romae Catherine Johnson Davis. And they were part of that Central Postal Battalion. It was 855 African American females that had to sort through 17 million pieces of mail that was piled up to the ceiling when they walked into this this warehouse hangar for the planes out there on a military basis. And what I liked about them is that back in 1945, under the late President Roosevelt, he allowed them to serve. You know, he gave them a place to be able to serve. And with that place, it wasn't the greatest of conditions. They said the conditions were cold. The conditions were overran by rats, because they were feasting on the cakes, the pies, and things like that that were sent to servicemen who were not receiving their mail. And what they were saying was they had a saying: no mail, you have low morale. You know, the servicemen are thinking that their people do not care about them here in the United States or wherever they were serving, and they felt deserted. But these people, instead of the 6 months that they were given, they did this in 90 days to make sure that every piece of mail was delivered to these servicemen. Now, by this time, you know, within that, they said this mail had been piling up for like almost 2 years since the start of that war. And these ladies came in February of 1945, got it done in 90 days so that these servicemen would have something to know that they were cared about. Now, these women came back to the United States only to find out that it didn't matter what they had done before. they had still had a hard time. They weren't not recognized, and they just got recognition more than 80 years later. So I turn this over to you, and thank you for letting me bring that to you today. All right, now your voice, I can't hear you.
So it sounds like Hidden Figures, the
Yes,
movie Hidden
it,
Figures.
yes. And I
So
thank God for, not to cut you off, but I thank God for Tyler Perry, who thought enough to start writing scripts in order to bring that history to life on Netflix, and anyone else that's going to bring that to light. So I thank you.
So let me close with this. Thank you so much for bringing us that Black historical fact. And as we go forward with our shows, Ron Lee will be bringing us that 5-minute vignette every week that we have the Kitchings Table. But let me close this out by telling you about that beach in California. A stretch of beachfront land in Southern California that was seized from a Black family 97 years ago is said to be returned to their descendants. That property was called Bruce Beach, and land was purchased in 1912 on Manhattan Beach by Willa and Charles Bruce, and it made them the first Black landowners in the city back in Manhattan Beach back in the day. But 12 years later, they were forced off their property as it was seized by the city. The Bruces bought the first of 2 Ocean View lots for $1,225, property that can now be worth millions.
Hmm.
So the city has decided, now that they've made all they could off of it and it's been brought to everybody's attention, that, hey, look, y'all took this from us. So now they're going to return it back to the descendants. But Bruce Beach is the beach I was talking about that's on that stretch of land on Manhattan Beach. So that's what I'm talking about. So, Ronleen, thank you so much for bringing us today's show. We thank you all for listening. We hope that you join us next Tuesday morning here at 10 o'clock for the Kitchings Table, where we will bring you more information, news, and historical facts. For my co-host, Ronleen Kennedy, I'm W. Earl Kitchings. And until next week, as we always say, do something good for somebody else today. Take care. Bye-bye.